What's going on, guys? SasDood here. You can just call me Saz. I hope everyone is having a fantastic day. Today we have a book review, and that is on the Elric Saga, Volume 1 by Michael Moorcock. And I just want to talk through uh, how I came across Elric. I'm going to show off the book, and then I'm gonna talk about Elric as a character and Moorcock's influence on him, and some of Moorcock's personality and political leanings and how it applies to this book. And then we have a story synopsis. So just like most of the book reviews, I'll be reading off a script. But these are all my thoughts after reading this. I finished reading it about I don't know a month or so ago. So I came across Elric mostly through recommendations online as I was looking through similar sword and sorcery tales. Uh, same sword and sorcery tales as Robert E. Howard's Conan or George R. Saunders' first Imaro book. What was described by others was a protagonist that was broody, he was introspective, and in a way doomed from the onset, whether by fate or his own hand. And those decisions will shape his fate, and those descriptions that I've read were seemingly correct. From the stories inside the first volume, Elric is a protagonist atypical of the usual sword and sorcery trappings, and so are the stories Michael Moorcock has written about him. Um, I was hesitant at first to relate or even like Elric, uh, because I hold Robert E. Howard's stories in such high regard, and Conan in such high regard. But just like Imaro, I'm very glad to have read of Elric's journeys and Moorcock's gloom and doom protagonist. Before we talk about Elric as a character and of the stories and contents inside, let me show off the book a little. It's a decently sized book with 752 pages and a slip cover, or is it called a slip cover or a dust cover? Yeah, protecting the book. A little rant on dust covers. I think they're not even worth the trouble and are completely useless, and they only get into the way of the actual reading. I always toss the dust cover somewhere close by while reading, and it's always a pain to put back on, right? A picture of Moorcock right there, but these dust covers are a pain in the butt to put back on and to manage while reading. What sucks, if you may have noticed while I was taking off the dust cover, is there's no like design under the cover except for whatever whatever the it says for the book, right? There's no design on the back or the front. Everything's been published or designed to have it only be on the dust cover. So I was looking at eBay used listings, and some of them had the dust cover and some of them don't. And I think the color is very appealing. The green, but the green and the white. But that's a big loss on the manufacturer's part to just have it on the dust cover. You have this beautiful artwork of Elric and Stormbringer scattered throughout the book by Gerald Brom, Robert Gold, Richard Hescox, and John Pichow. Picacchio. I don't know how you spell it. I believe the cover was made by Brom. Moving to the interior of the front, you have the map of the Young Kingdoms right here, and you also have, I believe, the same map on the back here. There is a foreword by Neil, what's his name? Neil Gaiman. I almost said Neil Young. Recounting his experiences and how he came across the Elric novels, which, to be frank, I skipped. Let me show off. I can't find all the pictures here, but I can show you like one or two. So we have that picture right there, and then we have this is cool. Although the binding makes it look really weird. I don't know. It's just kind of an odd thing to put because it's a glossy type of paper. It doesn't even match the book, but I think the artwork is beautiful, especially this one. This one's an amazing piece of artwork. I was a little bit confused in my notes, but I wrote that you have the what do you call it, the reader's guide in the back here. So it tells you which year the stories took place in, or what how it was written, and a little bit of lore in the back there. But that pretty much covers the book in terms of appearances. It's not too hefty, despite being almost 800 pages. It's 752 pages, and the artwork by the artist. There are other pieces of artwork. I can't find them right now. I forgot to write them down. But the front cover is beautiful. The artwork that I showed you was awesome, and the slipcover definitely makes it stand out. The color and the design definitely makes the book stand out on a bookshelf. But that's gonna be it for showing off the book. We can get back to talking about Elric as a character and the influence of Moorcock on Elric. So I'll see you there, guys. Talking about Elric as a character and his influence on Moorcock and the influence of Moorcock on Elric. I don't know too much about Moorcock, but through quick readings, as stated before, Moorcock has written a character unlike any other sword and sorcery character before this, and uh, before and after this publication, it seems. Simultaneously hopeful and simultaneously doomed, Elric as a character is a work of contrast, a work of fate, and a man torn between his lineage and himself as a living being. Torn between being a Melnibonian and following his ancestry and his desire to rise his kingdom above his ancestors' way of rule, while also being constantly undermined and derided by cousin Yurkun. He is frail of body, wise beyond his years, while at the same time foolish, stubborn, naive, and hopeful and doomful all at the same time. A fantastic blend of a character that shouldn't really work, but does, and is written in a way that you would think he is a real, living, breathing character that could exist in some way, shape, or form in real life. He is a character of contrast, torn between all angles and sides, enslaved to his sword Stormbringer and to herbs, drugs, and the souls of whoever dares to attack or heeds its progress as an enemy. A living walking contradiction among his people. The journey Elric, or journeys I should say, Elric sets out under are wild tales, all for the search of knowledge and a better way to rule his kingdom and to expand his knowledge of the world. Moorcock, from the little I've researched, has no problem putting politics into his work, and Elric is no exception. City politics and the politics between Elric and the Melbonians, as well as their past actions across the young kingdoms, are commented on frequently by city folk and noblemen alike. The actions Elric does for and against Melnibone can be attributed to Moorcock's own political leaning towards anarchism. That's a little tough word. And quite frequently, Elric deals with political figures in his stories. The inherent duality of the two deciding factors of the universe in which Elric deals with is inherently political, right? The two sides of law and chaos. His affairs with his own kingdom, his dealings with his cousin, and his own lover all contribute to this political leaning of feeling. Moorcock himself is on a council called the Swordsmen and Sorcerers Guild of America, although he was put as a council member without his knowledge. Moorcock has also devised what he calls a internal champion, a hero of multiple identities across multiple universes, what he calls multiverses, who deal with the polarity between law versus chaos, order versus entropy. Moorcock has also tried various times to some degrees to have films made about Elric, although keeping a tight handed leash does mean that when the studios strayed too far from the original vision, he would not be a pushover and let them do what they want. Which is rare to see in an author, and probably why any films haven't really materialized in the years since. It's been a long time since he wrote Elric. It's been, I think, about 20 years. And I commend him for that. Your IP, I believe, is like a living, breathing person with its own life cycles, ups and downs, and not taking care of your own IP can lead to the stagnation, even death of the thing you spent your whole life taking care of, similar to a parent or a guardian taking care of their kid or charge. Now, let's go over uh, the 4 books, which are separated into multiple parts with some artwork scattered around, which I showed off earlier. The first book is self-titled. It's just called Elric of Melnibone and focuses on Elric's place on the throne, the introduction of him as a character, his cousin Yirkun, his lover Samiril, and is more of a straight sword and sorcery tale in contrast to his future adventures and tales that Elric goes on. Elric is quickly introduced as a sickly, frail albino sorcerer slash swordsman who, amongst his people, are the first to. Well, amongst his people, sorry, he is the first to develop a conscience and questions life and the matters of his kingdoms. His cousin Yirkun does not like this or him as an emperor, preferring to rule the people as a typical emperor of his bloodline, with slavery, ignorance, and with an iron fist. Yirkun also wishes to take Cimarel for himself. While the capital is being invaded, Yirkun betrays Elric, tossing him into the ocean and declaring Elric dead, and himself as emperor. Taking Cimarel for himself and ruling Melnibone his own way. Elric makes a pact with Arioch, Lord of Chaos and a Duke of Hell, and Arioch leads him to the titular Stormbringer, which which lives and feeds off of souls of living beings. Overall, a fantastic, although perhaps too simple of a tale of swords and sorcery adventure when compared to Moorcock's later tales. It provides a satisfactory and clear, yet meaningful introduction into the world of Elric, Melnibone, the Young Kingdoms, and overall amazing magical world. We have the second story, which is called Fortress of the Pearl, in which, after the trials and tribulations of his first book, Elric sets off to the Young Kingdoms for a year in order to expand his knowledge of the world and to learn how to better rule his own kingdom, leaving Yirkun in charge as a temporary emperor. He winds up in the desert city of Quarzhasat, if I said that right, after running out of life-sustaining herbs and after being rescued by a boy and later poisoned by one of the city's leading noblemen. He's blackmailed by the nobleman with the life of the boy that saved him earlier, and the nobleman wants him to search out and find the pearl at the heart of the world. A damn near suicidal mission, basically, where multiples of other men have failed in the past at fighting. After various run-ins, he finds the secret of the pearl's whereabouts are literally stuck in the mind of a tribe's holy girl, Varadia, however you say her name, who is trapped in a magical coma cast upon her by an enemy clan. He's forced to enter her dreams with the assistance of a dream thief, Own, I believe her name is. That's how you say it. A person who steals good and bad dreams alike to sell on the black market. They both go through various different levels of dreams, tempting both Elric and Own as they make their way through the mind of Varadia to find out where the pearl lives. The second story has a real desert story, Aladdin type of vibe, from nearly dying in the desert to his rescue, the blackmailing by the noble. It seems like a pretty standard affair until we get to the second half of the book, where the concept of dream thieves going into Varadia's mind, the varying levels of danger as Elric and Own make their way deeper into Own's mind, or actually into Varadia's mind. I wrote Own's mind, and the surreal way the levels are described and the dangers they face. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the second book or second half in general, but it was very interesting to read, especially, uh, it's not interesting to read, but I'm more of a grounded person when it comes to stories and such, especially in sword and sorcery. So coming off of the first story, the self-titled book, to Fortress of the Pearl was a pretty big surprise to me. I like the friendship between him and the two dream thieves he meets, and I like the ending as well to Fortress of the Pearl. I don't think it's a bad story by any means or form, but while I was interested in the adventures Elric and Own and the other Dream Thief had, I felt like it was a little too long and overstayed its welcome. The third story chronologically takes place third in the timeline, but is more of a side adventure and focuses on the before mentioned multiverse and the concept of an eternal champion. It's divided into 3 parts. In Sailing to the Future, Elric finds himself lost somewhere near the Young Kingdoms on a shore or beach, on the run when he comes across a boat carrying passengers who are destined to fight some evil beings and set the residence of the evil being on fire. They eventually come to understand that they are four iterations of the same being and are all eternal champions. Did I say the name of the story? It's Sailing to the Future. I might have missed that. They eventually defeat the creature after combining into this 8-armed being, and they go their separate ways with their memory lost. In Sailing to the Present, Elric is on another shore with no memory of his past adventure. He meets a sailor called Smorian who, with Elric, attempts to escape this strange world, while they're being followed by a riderless pale horse. They come across a Melnibonean nobleman named Saxif. I blanked on that name there. Who met a woman named Valis, with whom he confuses as a woman who he killed in the past, as a part of some sort of like old Melnibonean Naean legend. Elric and Smorgan battle wits and swords against Saxif and escape. In Sailing to the Past, Elric and Smorgan escape and go on an adventure with a duke named Devon, who is searching for the island of Rilin Kenren Ah, how do you say his name? With the help of an old Melnibonean map, of which even Elric didn't know existed, that shows where the ancestral city of the Melniboneans is located. Ship's crew are attacked by some reptilian creatures, and Elric calls upon King Nurk, who helps them. And there's a lot of U's, a lot of R's, and a lot of C's in Nurk. Later on, Elric tries to summon Atrioc, who refuses to help Elric. The Duke and Elric find the statue of Arioch on the island, which was the intended goal, but the Jade Eyes are missing, which the Duke wanted to sell. To make a long story short, they meet a 10,000-year-old man who is known from a very old legend that's related to Arioch. He expounds the tale of Arioch and why the Melniboneans fled, and why this man is cursed to live so long. All three stories are very interesting in concept and very well written. I liked all three concepts, and the stories are of decent length and size. And we get more lore with Melnibone in the third story. Elric and his companions he meets are ever interesting, and while I do not care too much about the concept of the Eternal Champion or the multiverse Moorcock built / was building at the time, it's nonetheless pretty dang interesting. The fourth story, which may be my favorite, I think, besides the first one, it's called Weird of the White Wolf, and is split into multiple parts, of which I'll focus on the main part, which is Elric's return to Melnibone to take back his throne from Yrkun, who has betrayed him. Yrkun refuses to give back the throne to Elric and places Elric's lover Cimmeril under eternal sleep. Elric leads an invasion against the city with the help of various crew members. Elric confronts Yrkun. He sneaks into the city by himself, sees Cimmeril, confronts him. Later on, they attack the city and confront him, in like a final battle sort of way. And he's unable to control Stormbringer, and Yrkun takes advantage of this. And Elric accidentally kills Cimmeril and Yrkun at the same time after having awakened Cimmeril. He kind of stabs them both at the same time. The sword's going crazy, looking for souls to drink and such. Elric, depressed, broken, and with the city burning and tumbling around him, escapes and tries to cast away Stormbringer into the ocean. Immediately after, he regrets that decision, and he dives in, and he tells the sword, he accepts as his and Stormbringer's fate. We have a second part of the book, which is takes place after the first part, of which Elric, accidentally kills Cimmeril and Yrkun. And in this part, he's very depressed. He's sitting in a tavern when a Mern woman named Shirilla tells him about a book called the Dead Gods Book, which has the creation of everything and the answer to all of Eric's questions of a higher power, law, and chaos, etc. He eventually comes across Moonglum, a companion who serves more of like a looser, funny man type of character compared to Elric's straight man act. They eventually come to find the book, all three of them, and it literally crumbles into dust in Elric's hands because of its great old age, which is a pretty good, twist on an old tale, right? Book with a bunch of knowledge, and then it just crumbles in dust because it's such an old book. That's so ill. It was pretty funny when I read it, but it's also pretty sad for Elric. We have the third part of the story, which finds Elric and Moonglum in a desert city where they're recruited by Queen Yashana of Jakar to solve the tale of a newly appeared citadel, which has ties to chaos after it has shown up mysteriously and people have disappeared investigating it. After solving the mystery and winning the favor of Yashana and the ire of her sorceress, Teleb Karna, the story resolves with Teleb running away and Elric continuing on more adventures, with Theleb playing a pretty big part into the later stories. All three stories are pretty damn interesting, and the first two add quite a bit of lore to Elric. The tragedy of Cimmerel and Elric, its intertwined fate with Stormbringer, and the subsequent tale of finding the dead god's book are quite harrowing tales and serve only to sober Elric's thinking and destroying him physically and mentally. These first two stories defined Elric for books to come, along with the enemy of Telab Karna. The third book is definitely more of a lighthearted tale, or I should say, the third tale is more of a lighthearted tale, and is much needed after all of Elric's trials and tribulations. Now, going to my thoughts on Elric right here. Elric is a very interesting character off of contrasts and values not seen before or after Moorcock's introduction of this character in his adventures through the Young Kingdoms and the various multiverses. The woes of Elric, the doomed introspectiveness and sorcery feel, as well as the feeling and exploration of ancestry and such, is similar to George R. Saunders' Imaro. We have the fluid fight scenes and descriptive elements similar to Robert E. Howard, and we have the internal champion side piece lore, as well as the introductions of law and chaos, the Dukes of Hell, and the various elements gives Elric a more sorcery feeling than sword, and that's what Moorcock brings to the table to the genre of sword and sorcery. It's hard to make a sword and sorcery stand out amongst all the similar tropes and such, but Elric as a character, concept, and multi-part story, although written in parts and such across long spans of time, is written pretty competently and expertly crafted. I'm not going to say pretty competently, it's very, very well written competently, even though it spanned a great deal of time for Moorcock. Elric stands head and shoulders above similar copycats and similar sword and sorcery material, seeking to emulate Conan or Imaro and such, and not quite nailing what makes the genre so unique and beloved as an American concept. If you're a big fan of sword and sorcery, then you need to check out Elric, and what better place to start than the first volume of this epic saga. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. If you wish to support me, my videos and artwork, all my payment, tipping links, as well as social medias will be in my profile. More videos, more artwork will come regardless. Goodbye for now, and read on.